good morning. I hope you guys had a good week. My week was alright, and I hope you have an amazing day. I just turned 20, so happy birthday to me. And with that being said, instead of making a video about me, I figured that we'll be talking about the book of pain, agony, and suffering. But before we go any further, my name is Ivan. Welcome to Books by Ivan. I read books and I talk about them. And today we're going to be talking about some of the passages in these books, and there's quite a few of them that have left me staring at my ceiling, wondering if I should keep going, which I did, of course. But before that, please subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and get ready to hear some of the most gut-wrenching text you've ever read, at least that I have ever read. It starts on page 346, towards the bottom, and I want you guys to just listen and let me know what you guys think. But as much as he fears sex, he also wants to be touched. He wants to feel someone else's hand on him. Although, the thought of that too terrifies him. Sometimes he looks at his arms and is filled with self-hatred, so fiery that he can barely breathe. Much of what his body has become has been beyond his control, but his arms has been all of his doing, and he can only blame himself. When he had begun cutting himself, he cut on his legs, just the calves, and before he learned to be organized about how he applied them, he swiped the blade across the skin in haphazard strokes, so it looks as if he had been scratched by a crosshatch of grasses. No one ever noticed. No one ever looks at a person's calves. Even Brother Luke hadn't bothered him about them. But now, no one could not notice his arms, or his back, or his legs, which are stripped with runnels where damaged tissue and muscle have been removed. An indentation the size of thumbprints where the braces, screws, had once been drilled through the flesh and into the bone, and tiny ponds of skin where he had sustained burns in the injury, and the place where his wounds have closed over, where the flesh now craters slightly, the area around them tinged a permanent dull bronze. When he has clothes on, he is one person, but without them, he is revealed as he really is. The years of rot manifested on his skin, his own flesh advertising his past, its depravities and corruptions. Once, in Texas, one of his clients had been a man who was grotesque, so fat that his stomach had dropped into a pendant of flesh between his legs and covered everywhere with flaws of eczema, the skin so dry that when he moved, small, ghostly strips of it floated from his arm and back into the air. He had been sickened seeing the man, and yet they all sickened him. And so, in a way, this man was no better or worse than others. As he had given the man a blowjob, the man's stomach pressing against his neck, the man had cried, apologizing to him, I'm sorry. He said the tips of his finger on the top of his head. The man had long fingernails, each as thick as bone, and he dragged them over his scalp, but gently as if they were tines of comb. And somehow, it is as if over the years he has become that man, and he knows that if anyone were to see him, they too will feel repulsed, nauseated by his deformities. He doesn't want someone to have to stand before the toilet retching as he had done afterward, scooping handfuls of liquid soap into his mouth, gagging at the taste, trying to make himself clean again. This is one of the many pages, literal pages in this book. As you can see, all of these, well, what was I? All of these are pages similar to this. As I was reading this, right, I just started to have a mental image of the situation he was in, and I found myself, as the text suggested, disgusted. But I don't want to be self-righteous, right? I don't want to say that I pitied him, but I felt compassion for him. It's the proper word, because I don't want this to happen to anyone, and especially not someone that has been through so much as he has. Another passage that's filled with pain and agony. As you can see, I'm not even sure you can see. The lighting is too bright. By the way that Jude and his partner interact in this passage is just gut-wrenching. It is so painful to read that I had to stop midway through to gather myself. I want you guys to just listen and you might be able to understand what I mean. And then there is the sex, which is worse than he had imagined. He had forgotten just how painful it was, how debasing, how repulsive, how much he disliked it. He hates the posture, the position it demands, each of them degrading, because they leave him so helpless and weak. He hates the taste of it and the smell of it, but mostly he hates the sound of it. The meaty smack of flesh hitting flesh, the wounded animal moan and grunts, the things said to him that were perhaps meant to be arousing, but he can only interpret as diminishing. Part of him, he realized, has always thought it would be better as an adult. It somehow, the mere fact of it would transform the experience into something glorious and enjoyable. In college, in his 20s, in his 30s, he would listen to people talk about it with such pleasure, such delight. And he would think, that's what you're so excited about? Really? That's not how I remember it at all. And yet, he cannot be one who is correct and everyone else, millennia of people, wrong. So clearly, there is something he doesn't understand about sex. Clearly, he is doing something incorrectly. That first night, they had come upstairs. He had known what Caleb had expected. We have to go slowly, we told him. It's been a long time. Caleb looked at him in the dark. He hadn't turned on the light. How long? He asked. Long, was all he could say. And for a while, Caleb was patient, but then he wasn't. There came a night in which Caleb tried to remove his clothes, and he had pulled out of his grasp. I can't, he said. Caleb, I can't. I don't want you to see what I look like. He had taken everything he had to say this. And he was so scared. He was cold. Why? Caleb had asked. I have scars, he said, on my back and my legs and on my arms. They're bad. I don't want them. to be seen by you. He hadn't known really what Caleb would say. Would he say, I'm sure they're not bad? But then, would he have to take his clothes off after all? Or would he say, let's see, and then he would take his clothes off and Caleb would get up and leave? He saw Caleb hesitate. You won't like them, he added. They're disgusting. And that had seemed to decide something for Caleb. Well, he said, I don't need to see all of your body, right? Just the relevant parts. And for that night, he had laid there, half dressed and half not, waiting for it to be over, and more humiliated than if Caleb had demanded he takes his clothes off after all. That is two of the 372 pages I have read so far. This book, the book of pain, suffering, and agony, would trigger something within you. And if you have any experience with self-harm, and if you decide to read this book for the love of God, please ease yourself into it, because it can sometimes be so descriptive. I would visualize it on myself, on my own body. And if you have scars similar to his, I can only imagine what it would be like for you. But yeah, I don't want to keep this video too long. This was just some of the passage in this book. This book is great. It's really great, but it hurts to read. It seriously does. And I hope that at the end of this, I will have picked up something that I hadn't before, or I will come in to terms with the subject of self-harm, and hopefully it helps me understand what others are going through. With that being said, my name is Ivan. This was A Little Life, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have anything else you'd like me to read, please let me know. Once again, I turned 20, so I'm happy. I'm gonna go celebrate. And you guys have a good rest of your week. Remember, it's better to read than not to read. Have a good day and be good people. Bye.